Alright, so just like with all my other videos on here, because I'm hesitant to even post now, I'm not going to have the comments turned on. You cannot comment on my videos because I've gotten too many people, mostly men, older men, who like to just tell me everything they think is what I should do with photography, with my business, with my cameras, what I should and shouldn't shoot with, and that's not the point of this. It's not about you at all. It's about me and what I choose to use and my thoughts as I'm learning and discovering things myself. So honestly, for me, trial and error works better than anything else, so anything you tell me isn't necessarily going to make me go, yes, I need to go buy that lens or that camera or this system because so-and-so on the internet told me so. That's not how I work. Now, I wanted to give an update on my Sony A7C first. This is the only camera purchase I've ever really regretted. There have been a lot of things I'm unhappy with that maybe when they come out with the second one would be better that are just not for this. Yeah, quick disclaimer for anybody who's going to say my volume is down low. It's not. The volume is fine. I also have an external mic, which you all seem to think I don't. Turn your volume up. That's all I can say, because if it works fine on my end, which every time I go back and listen to a video when someone says that, mine sounds fine. It's not me. Anyway, back to this. So I have a lot of complaints about this camera, and granted, I know this isn't like the best Sony camera. That was not the point. The point of me getting this was to have a very small size full frame camera for travel. I had the RP. I didn't like the RP. I thought it was really slow to focus, really slow to take photos. This is only slightly better, but it is smaller. But this also allows me to take this on trips and not have to take any of my Canon gear, which then I would be worried about because those are what I use for my business. Whereas this, I'm like, I have a Sony 85 and I have a Sony 50 and that's all I take with it. However, that does still limit me. I hate the menu system in here. I also hate that someone decided the menu button going here was a good idea because, hello, my fingers when I'm holding my camera can't also reach up there. If I try to reach over, then it shuts off the view, or it goes to the viewfinder, and that's not what I want at that moment, but I don't want to disable it because I still use it. So, but my other biggest issue that Sony has not figured out, and I don't know why, because Canon's had it for a long time, and I'm pretty sure my Olympus cameras were fine with it too, the interval timer. It does not refocus when you're taking photos. And I use that a lot because when we take photos together, like my husband and I, or like if we were to go on a family trip, like I'm aware that I can set the focus spot on like someone already standing in the photo, but when that's not an option, I need the interval timer to refocus for me. That is important to me. Maybe not to you, but to me that is. There is no easy workaround for that. My Canons refocus as I move through a shot, which if I'm moving in a dress and doing like floaty movements or doing ballet or something, it refocuses on me, and that's super important for my type of work in photography when I'm doing self stuff. This does not, and Sony does not have a way to do it. I have contacted them. I've heard other people say the same thing. I tried it with my Fuji yesterday too, and it did an okay job, but I also had my husband already staying there. I have not tried it yet to see if it actually refocuses. I don't think it does either. So my Canon does, and my Olympus does, and there are days now where I still wonder, why do I need to take different cameras? Why did I just not stick with Olympus? Because, not for my professional work, but more for like travel. Because like my Olympus gear is very small, and it has a full flip out screen so you can see when you're taking photos. It has an interval timer that works well because I've never had issues with theirs. It takes good photos and videos because of the in-body image stabilization. Like, all those things work really well. It also takes photos really well in low light, which is my other complaint about this. I use it for my Wednesday night church photography because when I already have to take my stuff for choir practice, I don't want to take my giant Canon as well. I'd rather just take this to go do photos of the teens or of the kids afterwards. If it's low light and I'm trying to be silent because they're in the middle of doing something and I don't want to draw attention to myself, I have to turn this on electronic shutter, which the electronic shutter has really bad banding in low light. And I can kind of adjust the settings to work with that, but I don't really have time to be doing that. My Canon's shutter is so silent that I never have to do that. And so sometimes that bothers me too. Now my 5D4 has a very loud shutter, but this is like about what that is. So I'm like, as a mirrorless camera, I would think they'd be better. My Olympus is a little louder. My EM1 that I sold had a very silent electronic shutter. It was great. The only other one that I know that is as silent as my Canon would be my Fuji X100V when it's on, because it has that leaf shutter. The X230 is not quite. The X100V is. So those are my complaints about my Sony so far. For my type of photography and how I'm using it. Again, remember, this is about me and how I use it, not you, because I know there are people wanting to comment on that right now, which is why I turned all the comments off on everything. These are just my thoughts to help work through this and hopefully help other people that may be doing the same type of stuff as me. Sorry, the lighting keeps changing in here and I don't have my ring light right now because my dad's borrowing it. So you get what you get. But yes, so yesterday for my birthday, I took my X100V, but I also took my X-T32. And I have the 50 millimeter, so it's the 35, but it's like equivalent of a 50 millimeter f1.4. I use that 90% of the time. I have the 18 to 55 kit lens, which is a great option when I need wider range, like a wider shot or a more zoomed in shot, because those are the only two lenses I have for this. And if I have a fully planned, like I know exactly what the lighting, all those things are going to be, like I can set myself where I need to be and I'm not in a quick moment or a tight moment, those kind of things, then this is perfect. This is great. Other than the fact that, like I said, the electronic shutter is still kind of loud. This is so much easier to just pull out on the go, or like yesterday I was in the ballet studio. I didn't want to really be like obvious. I was trying to be more subtle, so instead of pulling this out, I pulled this out. And honestly, that 35 millimeter field of view comes in handy a lot. Like, it is not my favorite, but it does really work. So I did really enjoy using this a lot yesterday too. I do think this is more limited sometimes to the types of like photos I want, which is why I have this one with the f1.4 lens. Because I really like, me as like personally, I like the blurry background. I like that look. Now, we used my X-T32 yesterday at a park to take some nice photos of us, and I tried the interval timer. It is not, like I said, it's not as good as the Canon where it refocuses on you and everything. It definitely, the first whole set that we took didn't focus at all. And I had my husband standing, like focused on him, it didn't work. So then the next few sets were better and better, mostly. Like I said, these two cameras definitely misfocus some, about the same. Like, they're not as always on as like my R6 is. That's just how they are. Honestly, I think my Olympus focus was pretty darn good too most of the time. I just didn't like the dynamic range of the Olympus. That is my main complaint. The smaller sensor, it wasn't my favorite. Because I am a aperture wide open type person. That is my favorite. But yeah, so when we used this, like I did get some really, really great shots. I do feel like I kind of missed having my full frame though yesterday. So part of me is like, when we travel next year, like, or when we go to Disney in the fall, I was kind of like thinking like, I'd love to use these for Disney. And I can't even decide which one of these because I want to use like these cool film simulations to make it look like really nostalgic Disney. I've already been testing that out, like when we go to places like Kings Island or when we went to Carowinds or things like that. And even then, I have a hard time deciding which ones to use. And I can still get a cool vintage look off of my A7C, which I took to Kings Island once too. I've always taken my Olympus or my Canon in the past to Disney. I've never taken any of these other cameras. So I loved using my Olympus. I got great shots, but honestly, like the dynamic range didn't look great on them. So I got really frustrated because a lot of times you're in super sunny outdoor environment. You don't have a lot of control over the lighting. When I needed better lighting, when I would take my Canon with me, the full frame, it looked so much better because I would usually use an 85 at that point. And it just like, it made the photos so much pop, it made them look so good. And so it's like I'm torn between what I want to take as far as like size of camera too, because I love the full frame and I don't love my Sony, but I'm thinking like, you know, for those like really cool shots at Disney, like it'd be really cool to have my Sony to get some of those. And then I'm like, but I also want to take both of these. This would definitely be for the days where I need weather sealing, because as long as I have the little adapter ring on this or my 50 millimeter lens, which can also get me up to 100 millimeters with a digital teleconverter, which I love to use, then this is great for that. But when I want that super clean, blurry background, I either need this or like I need my full frame with the 85, which part of me is thinking I may just take the Sony with only the 85 and not even bring the 50, because if I have this, it's kind of like, I'm so bad, my camera bag is going to be so heavy. And then on top of that, I also always bring, and I have been this week too, my Canon G7X Mark III. To be honest, I have not been happy with this camera. We have the Mark I, and I basically kind of gave that to my husband to use for his stuff, but also as a backup, I've had this one ready. Well, now that I've started trying to use it, I hate how it does not hit focus like at all. It sucks. So I kind of wish I had gotten the original again or the Mark II, but the Mark II's been sold out. I just love the silver and black look to it. So, you know, and my mind is going like, oh, the most recent one's going to be the best one. No. Even though they made a firmware update, that did not fix the problem. It still sucks. I'm just going to say it. So I do take this as well though too. But I'm thinking for our trip, I might just have him just take his in his backpack, and then mine will have the real cameras in mine. Okay, this lighting changing is driving me nuts today. But so that's kind of my dilemma. Like when we go to Disney, I'm like, I want to take both of these for different reasons, obviously. Like sometimes it's so much easier to just pull this out and have the 35 and have one of them. I'll probably just have one strapped to me the whole time. But then like this one gives me those like really cool detail-y shots and things like that, which my Sony would also do too if I ever need to take cute photos, like whether it's of outfits or things. Like some of the ones I've taken, some of my favorite Disney photos were taken on my, gosh, that would have probably been my 5D4. Yeah, that was my 5D4 with the 85. That was a beast to take into the parks, but I did it. But when I took that into the parks, it didn't bring anything else. And the few days I was on that trip, I also took my Olympus, I think it was the EM5 Mark II, or it might have been the EM1. Actually, at that point, it was probably the EM1 Mark II. I took that with me with like pro lenses. I didn't like any of the photos I got out of it, which was part of my issue. Like it wasn't the types of photos that I prefer with like the super blurred background and things like that. Like I was trying to get the cool character shots on the floats or get photos of me or my friend in front of different things and just like so you could kind of see the background behind us but not really. Just ways that it just made things stand out better, that looks better when you have that full frame with a low f-stop. So that's kind of how I prefer to shoot, which means like, oh, this is driving me nuts with this lighting, I'm so sorry. But these are all just my musings. These are just my thoughts of what am I even going to take when we go on trips. Like we're going to go out west with my husband's family next spring, I think. And I'm already going, okay, well, I'm obviously going to have to take the video camera, which I might have to, again, have him carry. I also have to take both of these cameras because I can't just do one. I really can't. And then I also want to take my Sony for the full frame look of stuff. So it's hard. I do this all the time with stuff. And part of me is like, if you had just stuck with Canon. But there wasn't a tiny enough Canon that like, again, this has been a dream of a camera, just to have this teeny tiny little body that I can take with me. And it's just perfect. I pull this out so much, and I have been since, well, I had the F first and I loved it, and then this obviously. And this has been amazing too. I started to just carry this one around more lately. I tend to still have the X100V in my purse, but I don't always use it. Oh, and just so you guys can see, I know I'm talking a lot. This is my kit lens. So this is the 35, which is basically a 50 millimeter is what's on here. This is the 18 to 50 f2.8. This one does have image stabilization, and it's not a solid f2, so it does, as you zoom in, it does go up to, I think, what is it? I don't know. F2.8 to f4. So it's still pretty good, to be honest. And most of the time, like, this is what I would take, like, out on a trip, like, landscape, like, that kind of shots. But this is what it would look like. Okay, now the light's coming back. That's what it's going to look like comparatively. So it's a little bigger, obviously, to carry around. And then when I'm carrying all of this stuff together, and stupidly, I still usually carry the Fuji extra lens with me, my little teleconversion lens, because again, for weather sailing, that's great to have with me. Also, if I put that on and use digital teleconverter, I can get up to 100 millimeters, which is helpful because I don't have anything for this camera that gets me up that high. So that was a lot of talking, and that's my thoughts. But like I said, these are my thoughts, my opinions on what things have worked for me. If I compare this, just to show you guys, so this is my Fuji X-T32 with the 50 millimeter lens equivalent on it. This is my Olympus EM5 Mark III with a 20 millimeter Panasonic, which is basically a 40 millimeter, so not quite the same focal length. Like camera build size, they're fairly similar. This one's got a little bit taller point on it, and obviously this lens is longer. When I would take this, like even the kit lens that I have on my EM10 is super flat. It's the little pancake lens. Like I took 90% of my photos in England with just this setup. Like literally the EM10 Mark II and this pancake kit lens, and I even had this handy little thing that I got off Amazon that acts as a shutter cap, so it protects the lens, but you also like don't have to take your lens cap off. Like I don't know if this is charged at all or even has a battery in it. Let's see. Oh, it does. So you can see this little lens cappy thing just closes over. Super handy. So it protected the lens, which was great. That's pretty much what I used my entire trip to England. I think I only took this 20 millimeter lens and my tiny well, I'll show you, it's on my Pen F, but my tiny little 45mm lens, which is like having an 85 sort of. But now, if I were to take it, I would probably take like this. I'll take my Pro lens because that's the only weather sealed lens I have anymore. I got rid of my 12 to 40, I sold it. But I just have the 45. And then I have this one, which I love too, which is the 75. So these are a little bigger, obviously. That's probably what I would bring. And then possibly also bring the little kit lens just in case I need a wider angle. This is fairly wide though, even though it's a 40, it's close to a 35. So I think that's why I've been able to use that so well. This also has the articulating screen. As far as I remember, the interval timer on this adjusts as it should while you're taking stuff. And it has an excellent image stabilization if I wanted to take videos and photos on this too. Or in low light situations, you've got great image stabilization for low light shutter speeds. So it is phenomenal. The shutter noise on this is a little bit louder too, and it's a little slower sounding. Like, I don't know, but something I do love when it's not getting on my nerves. I do love the sound of the shutter on both my Sony and on this X-T32. Like, the sound of the shutter is amazing. I just love the sound of that. It sounds beautiful. I don't know if it translates well on camera, but, and the Sony as well too. So it's a nice shutter sound, but if I put it on silent when I need it to, then I get the banding. So I can't show you my Canon because I'm filming on it. So this is being filmed on my R6 with the 35 1.8. So that's all I'm gonna say today, but I hope you guys enjoyed that and learned something from it. I'm sorry that I have to turn off the comments. It just is better for my own mental health to not have to deal with people. So